Where do we start?
So what were you guys doing before, like in the Philippines?
What
was life like in the Philippines before you moved?
Before we moved in here?
Let's start from when I was a university student. Studied in the University of the Philippines, which is in the country that is the what you call the premier university. The university is supported by the government, so it's not like everybody can
go in.
You know, you have to have high grades in high school to be admitted. You might be admitted, but you have to take a qualifying entrance test. That's how it works. But then you don't have to pay. Once you're in, you don't have to pay for tuition. So we have a good mix of people from the provinces. In fact, are you familiar with Ferdinand Marcos? Yeah, he was a student in the University of the Philippines, and but then when he was sitting for the bar for the bar exam, he was accused of murder in his own province. So he was incarcerated. He was thrown in prison. He reviewed bar exam while he was in prison, and because he was that smart, he passed it. We have a lot of other students there who became successful government leaders, but not all of them use their superior intellect to work for the good of the country. And you know how Marcos turned out. So unfortunately, I wasn't that very smart to be a leader of the country. But when I graduated, I was lucky enough to be hired by a bank. The name of the bank is Prudential Bank. Now in the Philippines, if you get hired by a bank, it's great because they're the top paying organizations. So, so I was lucky to get my work experience from the Prudential Bank. The Prudential Bank was, it advertises itself as the U.S. government depository in the Philippines. At the time, the United States had several bases in the Philippines. The biggest one was in a province called Olongapo. Like I said, I was hired by the Prudential Bank. My job there was, I started as a ledger clerk. Then a few months later, I was promoted to bookkeeper. I was again promoted over the 10-year period that I worked there. I was promoted to supervisor of the branches department.
How old were you by then?
How old was I? Goodness. I was 20 or 21. And I worked there for 10 years before I immigrated to the United States. And then in 1967, I married Becky here. We got married. A year later, after we got married, I was promoted again, assistant manager and in the Cebu City branch of Prudential Bank. That branch is kind of like in the middle of the country. So in Cebu, there's a little island where this, like I said, like a secret air base, U.S. Air Base, was close to. We provided service to military personnel on Mactan Air Base. Sometimes they would run out of dollars. I would go to Mactan with my trunk full of dollars, and I would get on the plane, and they would ferry me over to Clark Air Base, did the payroll for the military personnel in the country. In the afternoon, I just fly back to Cebu City. So that's the kind of work that I did.
(1965) was the year the Immigration and Nationality Act was established, relaxing quotas and other limits for migration from the Philippines as well as other Eastern countries.
Now, before I got promoted to Cebu City branch, I noticed that several of the employees that I work with, they were leaving, resigning from the bank. And when I asked them, what are you going to do? Moving to another company, And they said, no, we're going to America. And I got curious, so I asked them, do you have a work, do you have a job waiting there for you? And they said, no, it's easy to find, work in America as long as you have, you are a professional. That's what they said. So I got very interested. I says, well, I'd like to do that too. And at that time, it turned out that getting a work visa, what the State Department categorizes as employment-related visas, they have like 3 or maybe 4. The first preference are open to what they call people with extraordinary abilities, and in that category we have like professors, researchers, people with like doctoral degrees. So I got in on a third preference visa because a bachelor's degree is all it's required, plus I've got work experience, so I got in. In case I filed my visa application with the U.S. Embassy in Manila before I left for Cebu in 1968. So I took the job over there. I was surprised that 2 years later I got my visa. They approved me. This was in 1970. Yeah. So I kind of have a dilemma. Because now I was thinking, I can't leave this job. This is a terrific job that I have, and I'm getting promotions, And I was thinking to myself, in no time I will be a vice president of a bank the way I'm going, And then at the same time, I wasn't too happy about the situation in the Philippines because it's a third world country. Jobs are difficult to find in that country. The economic situation is getting worse because Marcos at the time was the president, and he did nothing but steal from the country. In fact, there was an article that came out here in the United States where it said the Philippines was the sick man of Asia.
Under Marcos's administration, at 7:17 p.m. on September 23, 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos announced that he had placed the entirety of the Philippines under martial law.
For a whole month, I couldn't find a job. So I'm kind of getting worried, But then, when I went to Bank of America, they hired me. They started me in May of that year.
Did you guys face any discrimination the 50 years you were here?
We didn't feel that as much. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because when I was working
Now that you ask, I recall my experience in Bank of America. There was this guy, he was German, he was white German, and he didn't, from talking to him, I didn't think he really had that much background in business. And here I am, I have all this experience, and the tax accountant was very happy with the work that I was doing. And they hired this guy off the street, a German, and they gave him a larger salary.
So
that's the other thing that I recall now that I was unhappy about.
So you think you're discriminated because?
Yeah, that's I guess
you're discriminated.
one of the things that I felt I was discriminated against. But for the most part, like when I worked with the city of San Jose had an affirmative action policy, and so they were hiring people of different backgrounds. They hired me, a guy from Hungary. There was a black woman. San Jose as a local government in those times was pretty much at the forefront of affirmative action. They really practiced. On their envelopes, you see it all the time. Everywhere in their correspondence, they like that slogan. We believe in that. So I said in my exit form, I said, Bank of America should not only believe in affirmative action, but they should practice it. And later on, I saw on their envelopes, we practice affirmative action.
How did the poker group form? How was that community?
Oh, the poker group. Well, Filipinos as a group are kind of very friendly, especially between Filipinos, you know. When we meet people who have just immigrated also, just like us, you know, they become our real good friends, and we do things together. You know, when we go someplace, you know, we go as a group.
Yeah,
It's
stuff
just
like
for,
that.
it gives us some comfort level because, you know, you're among your own people, and you feel safer, you know, if you travel as a group. So we formed this bond. After a while, somebody suggested, you know, when we're getting together, there's nothing else to do, why don't we play poker, you know? At first it started small, you know. We just use pennies, you know. And then afterwards, we were playing for real money. So we decided, why don't we do it on rotation, you know? That's how it got started. There were like 8 families. So after we play the game of poker, after we're done, we say, okay, in whose house are we going to meet first? We're having kids, and the kids got to know each other, you know.
And now, we're still
Yeah.
bonding.
And even after they grew up, they got to be good friends, you know. And we all call each other, we like to call each other cousins or uncles and auntie, you know. Even we're not related, we're just close friends. That's how Filipinos like to do it, to call each other.
The group that we used to have, we don't see them that much anymore. And most of them are as old as us. Some of them doesn't drive anymore because they live like, say, one in San Rafael, one in Oakland. It's kind of all over, spread out all over. So some of them doesn't drive anymore when they're in the 80s. Questions?
That was good.
What else?